I show speed. I know that's a very weird way to open a FNaF video, but stick with me. One night I was watching Speed play FNaF 4, and specifically when he was facing off against Nightmare. He died, and got sent back to the title screen. As he was in shock of Nightmare's color,
I knew he was black!
I looked at the background, at the FNaF 4 title screen, and had a thought. If FNaF 4's gameplay is meant to be a nightmare had by Michael Afton, and the nightmare animatronics are at what looks to be the Midnight Motorist house, wouldn't that imply that Michael is living there during the time he has the nightmares? And by extension, around or after the time of FNaF 1? This line of thinking sent me down a rabbit hole, which eventually led me to switch from Charlie first to BV first, which is where I stand today. This was only backed up by Ticket to Fun releasing and confirming Charlie died at Freddy's and not Fredbear's. But this video isn't about who died first. Rather, the thing that led me down the rabbit hole to begin with, the FNaF 4 title screen, and the mystery of the many Afton family houses. Our first introduction to the Afton household was the FNaF 4 title screen, where we see a lone house surrounded by trees and bushes. There's also a bigger tree next to the house. Remember this for later. During FNaF 4's minigames, we play as the bite victim, and are able to explore his home. Inside, we find his room, his sister's room, a grandfather clock, and a TV sitting on a table. Outside the house is where things get more interesting though. We see that the house has lush grass and flowers, and is surrounded by fencing. There's also a sidewalk leading directly to Fredbear's family diner, as well as a proper road with a parked car and a playground just outside the Afton house. Already, this doesn't really resemble the isolated house we saw on the title screen. FNaF 4's night segments show an entirely different bedroom from the one we see in the minigames. Instead of a single door and a dresser, this room has 2 hallways and doors, a closet, and an entirely different layout overall. These are clearly not the same bedroom. Outside the bedroom are windows, a grandfather clock at the end of the hall, and ugly yellow lamps. Come Sister location, and the end of night cutscenes show Michael Afton sitting in a living room watching TV. The TV is on a different stand than the one we saw in the FNaF 4 minigames, and the room has green wallpaper with the same railing design as the FNaF 4 night segment hallways in Help Wanted, and the same yellow lamp from FNaF 4's night segments. Sister location also shows us the map of the FNaF 4 minigames and night segments in the breaker room, which many at first thought was meant to tell us that Fredbear's family diner, the FNaF 4 minigame house, and this bedroom were all above Circus Baby's entertainment and rental. However, thanks to the story Didophobia, we learned that this bedroom and house are actually underground experiment rooms designed to monitor fear in children, and aren't part of a real house. This most likely means that the FNaF 4 minigame house and Fredbear's we see in the breaker room are also most likely fake, and aren't the real locations, instead just being recreations of them made for the experiments. But wait, if that's the case, then shouldn't the FNaF 4 night segment bedroom also be based on a real place, like Fredbear's in the minigame house? And why is Michael having nightmares of this bedroom in the first place? We'll come back to both of these questions. Sister Location's custom night cutscenes show Ennard inside Michael Afton's body, leaving what appears to be his house in a lively suburban neighborhood. This could potentially be the same neighborhood as we saw in the FNaF 4 minigames. Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator introduced us to the infamous Midnight Motorist minigame, where we play as William Afton, returning home after the murder of Charlotte Emily. The house Afton returns to is in the middle of the woods, has 2 stories, and when flipped, looks very similar to the house on the FNaF 4 title screen. Inside the house, the couch person watches the television on a stand that closely resembles the one from Sister Location's living room. Help Wanted's Curse of Dreadbear DLC is centered all around FNaF 4, and the hub is no exception. On a hill beyond the main area is a house, the exact same house from the FNaF 4 title screen, and there's even a rare chance you get the same lighting as the FNaF 4 title screen as well. Unlike that title screen though, this house is now visibly on a hill. There's also a lake near the house. Surely this won't be important later, right? Curse of Dreadbear's Trick or Treat level features us at a spooky mansion, putting on masks to avoid getting jump scared by the animatronics. The mansion itself is in the middle of nowhere, seemingly in a forest, judging by the dead trees behind us. The inside of the mansion doesn't have anything too special, other than a chair directly in front of a TV, which could relate back to Sister Location and or Midnight Motorist, but like, where else would you put a chair on the roof? Another level in the Spooky Mansion category is the hallway level, where the player must crawl through a hallway with the same wallpaper as the FNaF 4 Nightmare house to reach the FNaF 4 Nightmare bedroom. The logistics of this level don't necessarily make sense, as the hallway disappears once you enter the bedroom, so it's most likely either part of the nightmares, or it's just hallucinogenic gas shenanigans. Not that important. In the demo for 5 Laps at Freddy's, we get to see Midnight Motorist's map in 3D, including Junior's, the highway, the mound, and of course, the house. Once again, it's shown to be in the middle of the woods and have a second story. Finally, in the most recent release, Secret of the Mimic, we're introduced to Edwin Murray's mansion. It's located on a hill, in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by trees, and has a lake nearby, in the same position as the lake in the Curse of Dreadbear lobby. Oh yeah, and remember that tree I told you to remember for later? Well, granted, it's not the exact same tree, but the shape and its location are the same, and both are very different from all the other trees in the area. This would imply that after the events of Secret of the Mimic, and before the events of Midnight Motorist, William Afton's house is created on the same spot as Edwin Murray's mansion, presumably making use of whatever charred remains were there after the fire, as both homes have the same wallpaper and railings on the walls. And of course there's David Murray's bedroom, but we'll get to that later. This idea is supported by the email from Afton, where he says that although Fazbear Entertainment technically owns the land, they would never touch the house Edwin's parents built, which is clearly meant to be dramatic irony. William will indeed touch the land Edwin's house is located on. Now let's take a step back and look at everything we've gathered. The FNaF 4 title screen house, Midnight Motorist house, Curse of Dreadbear house, and 5 Laps at Freddy's house are all the same. They're all in the middle of the woods and have the same general shape. Secret of the Mimic showed us that before it belonged to the Aftons, this house belonged to Edwin Murray, as evident by the same lake and similar looking tree. The sister location in between night cutscenes of Michael watching TV most likely take place in this house as well. The TV stands in the sister location cutscenes and Midnight Motorist appear to be the same. If Michael's living in the Midnight Motorist house during the events of Sister Location, this would explain how Ennard is able to follow him home in the fake ending, as his house would be right above the underground facility. That leaves us with the house seen during FNaF 4's minigames, the house we see in Sister Location's custom night cutscenes, and the observation bedroom in Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rental, that shows up again in Michael's nightmares in FNaF 4's gameplay. Starting with the FNaF 4 minigame house. I really don't think this house is the same as the one we see in Midnight Motorist, Curse of Dreadbear, and FNaF 4's title screen. The differences aren't just small details that got lost because of the art style of the minigames. The entire environment is different. The minigame house is located in what appears to be a normal neighborhood, with a real road directly outside the house, fencing around the property, a playground, and a sidewalk leading straight to Fredbear's family diner. Meanwhile, the house in the woods is, well, in the woods. There's no neighborhood, no sidewalks, no real road, no playground, just a long dirt path leading to a nearby highway, and Junior's. But I think Junior's is a bar, so it's not really important. One argument I've seen in favor of the minigame house and Midnight Motorist house being the same is that the minigames in FNaF are often simplified, so the differences shouldn't be taken literally. I mean, just look at the inside of the Midnight Motorist house. Holy Christ, there's nothing. Another argument is that if you rotate the FNaF 4 minigame map and Midnight Motorist's map, the layouts are similar, and Fredbear's is where Junior's would be, meaning that after Fredbear's closed, Junior's probably opened in its place. And while those arguments aren't necessarily wrong, and I don't even hate the idea of Junior's being Fredbear's, and Scott's minigames are definitely overly simplified, I personally don't find these arguments all too convincing. These explanations require us to ignore almost every visible difference between the two locations, and at a certain point, if two houses look different, are surrounded by completely different environments, and have entirely different landmarks, maybe they're just different houses. Okay, if they really are meant to be different houses then, how does that work within the story? Well, it actually works surprisingly well for the narrative, believe it or not. Consider this. The Aftons originally lived in the suburban house we see in the FNaF 4 minigames. Then the big bite happens, and William makes his promise to put Bite Victim back together. I say it was William who said this because it's the same thing he'd tell Michael to do with Elizabeth in Sister Location.
I put her back together, just like you asked me to.
And because it's a line Nightmare Fredbear would later echo back to William in Ultimate Custom Night.
Let me put you back together, then take you apart all over again.
In order to put his son back together, William first tries bringing him back to life through Fredbear, as we see in the Dreadbear level in Curse of Dreadbear, but that doesn't work, and might be the thing that shatters his soul, theory for another day. His next idea is to recreate the circumstances surrounding Bite Victim's death, including the days leading up to it. This would line up with William's whole recreating the accident speech he gives in the fourth closet. This would be when he decides to move into the land that once belonged to Edwin Murray. That way, he, A, has access to the underground MCM tunnels that he can easily convert to the experiment chambers, and B, can escape the public eye and experiment in peace. Now, if you've been paying attention, you may notice I've yet to bring up two houses, the sister location custom night house and the experiment bedroom. And quite frankly, that's because I don't know how to explain them, at least not in a 100% satisfying way. For the custom night house, this might sound like a complete cop-out, especially given how earlier I explained that I don't think we should hand-wave the inconsistencies in the minigames away, but I think that's the only way we can explain the sister location custom night cutscenes under this interpretation of the Afton house timeline. I think Michael is still living in the Midnight Motorist house during the events of Sister Location, yet the custom night cutscenes show him leaving the house in a popular suburban area. So what gives? Well, what if the cutscenes aren't meant to be literal? Think about it. You're Scott, and you need a way to show Michael's body rotting over time and his public appearance slipping. What better way to do that than by having people get gradually more and more grossed out by him? Well, that would be very difficult to do if Michael still lives in the middle of nowhere, so Scott probably just made this setting a neighborhood without giving it much thought. Is it possible that I'm wrong and Michael does live in a neighborhood during Sister Location? Absolutely. But it's also possible that the neighborhood exists primarily as a storytelling device, rather than a carefully mapped location. Then we arrive at the bigger problem, the FNaF 4 nightmare/observation bedroom. You might be thinking, but Bernie, you explained its existence earlier. How is this a problem? And yeah, I did. The problem I have is David Murray. David Murray's bedroom is clearly meant to call back to the bedroom we see in FNaF 4 and the experiment chambers. Same toys, same closet and dresser locations, same carpet, same ceiling. If the experiments are meant to replicate Bite Victim's life, as the recreation of Fredbear's in the minigame house implies, would the inclusion of the bedroom not imply Bite Victim once owned that bedroom, and by extension lived in the Midnight Motorist house? If that's the case, that really hurts my explanation, as I have Bite Victim's death being the catalyst for the Aftons moving into that house in the first place, so that just can't work. Because again, the minigame bedroom is very much not the same as the FNaF 4 bedroom. The toys being in the bedroom, and Bite Victim's favorite being the plastic purple telephone, you can just easily explain as being given to him after the events of Secret of the Mimic. Fazbear Entertainment already owns the land, so there'd be no problem with William just giving trinkets of David to the Bite Victim, like he does with Vanessa in the movies. But that doesn't explain the bedroom itself. Editing Bernie Bear here, and I wanted to pop in real quick and offer a possible explanation for the bedroom problem. Didophobia directly tells us that the bedroom and house Rory finds himself in are designed to monitor fear levels in subjects, but we don't actually know what the other two areas of the experiments are for. What if we're wrong in assuming that all three areas are meant to study fear, and instead each area has their own purpose? Obviously the bedroom is designed to monitor fear via the nightmare animatronics, but what if the plush trap hallway is meant to simulate a moving animatronic? We see there are 5 squares in each of the areas plush trap can be in, 1 in each room and 1 on the chair. What if this area uses gas or some other kind of illusionary tech to make it seem like plush trap is moving between all these different areas, but in reality he's just moving from the chair to the X on a wire, like the nightmare animatronics and how they're moving on rails, and the other squares are just stationary plush traps meant to make it look like he's moving in between rooms. As for the map of Fredbear's in the FNaF 4 minigame house, as I established earlier, I don't believe what we're seeing on the breaker room map are literally those locations, but rather recreations of them for the purposes of experimenting. I think it's possible that this area alone is the only one that's meant to replicate Bite Victim's life, the same week that Bite Victim went through, leading up to the bite. Now, I'll be 100% honest. I don't have any evidence for this being the case, but I think it could work. And if this is the case, and this is the only part of the experiments that's meant to directly replicate areas from Bite Victim's life, then that means that the plush trap hallway, and more importantly the bedroom, don't have to be places Bite Victim went to or lived in while he was alive. This means William could have just modeled the bedroom after a room in his house that used to belong to the son of the man whose life he screwed over. After all, William's taken almost everything from Edwin already. What's the harm in stealing his son's room for his nightmare experiments too? This is backed up by Didophobia's description of the living room in Rory's house too. From Didophobia, the living room, like most of the rest of the house, had 2 different wallpapers separated by another chair rail. The paper in here had vertical stripes of bright blue and white above the rail. These colors matched the sofa and the rectangular rug under the oval coffee table in front of the sofa. Below the rail, wider vertical stripes of beige and cream colors matched his dad's recliner and a TV cabinet. A couple of paintings and 2 groupings of family photos hung on the blue and white part of the walls. If we assume Michael is living in the house in the woods during Sister Location, and if William William copied this room for the fake house in the experiments, I think it's fair to assume that the rest of the fake house is also a copy of the house in the woods, because why would he just have one room from one house and then the rest are all completely new? He wouldn't, that would be silly. And what do you know, but this is the same house that has David Murray's bedroom, which the Nightmare bedroom is based off of, meaning William would have just carried it over when he Control-C, Control-V'd the place, as it's probably the most kid-like bedroom in the house, fixing our problem. As it means Bite Victim didn't actually have to live in the Midnight Motorist house, and David Murray's bedroom was just chosen for the experiments by William purely for convenience. This is honestly the best explanation for this problem that I can come up with. Well, I mean, either that or I'm just wrong about everything, and Bite Victim really did live in the Midnight Motorist house. Either way, this and the sister location custom night cutscenes are the only problems I have with the Afton houses being different. Everything else lines up in a relatively clean and satisfying way, and even then, you can explain away those two things. Now, back to the video. To recap my thoughts, I believe the Afton family starts off living in the house next to Fredbear's Family Diner, the house that's in a thriving neighborhood in a suburban area. Then, after the big bite, the Aftons move out into the woods, to the land and remains of the Murray Mansion. William creates his nightmare experiments in the tunnels beneath the house, and uses David Murray's bedroom as the base for the bedroom. Years later, when William tells Michael to put his sister back together, Mike travels to the facility beneath his house, gets scooped, and the rest is history.